Taman stared at his screen and felt his 3 hearts skip a beat. The numbers made no sense. They couldn't make sense. In his 40 years as a xenophysicist, he had never seen readings like this. The object approaching the Viridian sector was doing something that reality itself should forbid. "Run the scan again," he told his assistant, trying to keep his voice steady. The assistant, a young researcher with nervous antennae, quickly complied. The results came back identical. Taman felt sick. The object was big, roughly the size of a standard cruiser. But that was where normal ended. His instruments said it was moving and not moving at the same time. The energy readings suggested it was consuming more power than a small star produced, yet outputting even more than it took in. That was impossible. Energy couldn't just appear from nowhere. The laws of thermodynamics were absolute, except this thing was ignoring them completely. "Get me Commander Yuna," Taman said quietly. "Right now." Commander Yuna arrived within the hour, her warship dropping out of faster-than-light travel with the precision her species was famous for. She was tall, blue-skinned, with 4 arms that moved with military efficiency. Her reputation as the Council's best tactical officer was well-earned. She had never lost a battle. "Show me," she ordered as she stepped onto the bridge of Taman's science vessel. Taman pulled up the data. Yuna studied it with 2 eyes while her other 2 watched the viewport. Her expression shifted from confidence to confusion to something that might have been fear. "Your equipment is malfunctioning," she said finally. "I've checked it 12 times, Taman replied. "It's working perfectly. The object is what's malfunctioning. Or rather, it's functioning in ways that shouldn't be possible." Yuna activated her tactical systems. Her warship, the Luminous Shield, was equipped with the most advanced targeting computers in the galaxy. They could track a single atom moving at relativistic speeds. They could predict the trajectory of anything with near-perfect accuracy. The targeting system looked at the object and crashed. Yuna's weapons officer, Sunho, a veteran of 30 campaigns, restarted the system. It crashed again. And again. On the 4th attempt, it managed to stay active, but the target lock kept failing. The computer couldn't decide where the object was. It appeared to be in 7 different positions simultaneously. "This is a new weapon," Yuna said, her voice hard. "Some kind of cloaking technology or sensor jamming." "No," Taman said. He pulled up the quantum analysis. "It's really in all those positions at once. It exists in multiple quantum states, but at a macro scale. That's not supposed to be possible outside of subatomic particles." Before Yuna could respond, her communication system activated. A voice spoke in perfect galactic standard, the common language of the Council. The accent was strange but understandable. "This is the HKNS Defiant. We mean no harm. We're here to discuss the blockade of the Viridian sector." Yuna and Taman looked at each other. Neither recognized the designation HKNS. It wasn't in any Council database. "Identify your species and your authority," Yuna demanded. "We're human," the voice said pleasantly. "From Earth. We're not part of your Council yet, but we'd like to be. We need access to the Viridian sector for research purposes. We were hoping to negotiate." "This sector is under quarantine," Yuna replied. "No unauthorized vessels permitted. Return to your point of origin immediately or we will open fire." There was a pause. Then the voice said, "Could we at least talk about it? Face to face? I'm Captain Haijun. I'd be happy to come aboard your ship." Yuna started to refuse, but Taman interrupted. "Let him come. I need to understand what I'm looking at. If they have technology this advanced, we need to know more." Yuna didn't like it, but she agreed. "Very well. Transmit your transportation coordinates and we'll guide your shuttle to our docking bay." "Oh, we don't use shuttles," Haijun said. "Stand by for transport." Before anyone could ask what that meant, the air in the middle of the bridge began to shimmer. Taman's instruments screamed warnings. Space itself was folding, bending, doing things that made his head hurt to think about. And then there was a man standing there. He was bipedal, bilaterally symmetrical, with only 2 arms and 2 eyes. He looked remarkably average for a species no one had ever seen before. He wore a dark blue uniform with strange symbols on it. He was smiling. "Hello," Haijun said. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." Half of Yuna's bridge crew was on the floor vomiting. The other half looked like they wanted to. Taman felt reality twist in his perception. For a moment he had experienced Haijun both arriving and not arriving. His brain had perceived the event as happening and simultaneously not happening. The contradiction made him dizzy. "What did you do?" Taman gasped. "Quantum transport," Hajun said apologetically. "Sorry, it affects most species badly the first time. You experienced all possible states of my arrival at once. Your brain tried to process it and got a bit confused. The nausea should pass in a few minutes." "That's not possible," Yuna said, though she looked pale. "Quantum states collapse upon observation. You can't transport a macro object through quantum superposition." "You can't," Hajun agreed. "We can. Different physics, I guess. Or maybe just a different understanding of physics." Another figure materialized beside Hajun. This one was younger, with quick eyes and an easy grin. "This is Minho, my chief engineer," Hajun said. "He can explain it better than I can." Minho nodded at them. "The trick is that we don't actually move through space. We convince reality that we were always at the destination. It's all about probability manipulation. Every point in space has a non-zero probability of containing any given particle, right? We just increase the probability of our particles being here instead of there, until here becomes the certainty." Taman blinked. "That's not how probability works." "It is if you're creative enough," Minho said. "Look, your species discovered physics and said, 'These are the rules. We must follow them.' Humanity discovered physics and said, 'These are the rules. Let's find the loopholes. We don't break the laws. We just interpret them very liberally.' Show me your ship's specifications," Taman demanded. "Your engine design, your power systems. I want to see the mathematics." Minho pulled out a small device and projected a hologram. Equations filled the air. Taman stared at them. His mind, trained in mathematics for decades, tried to process what he was seeing. The equations were wrong. They contained division by zero. They used imaginary numbers in places where only real numbers should exist. They treated parallel lines as if they could intersect. They took principles from quantum mechanics and applied them to massive objects. They broke every rule of mathematics that Taman knew. And yet somehow they worked. The results were internally consistent. The ship existed. It functioned. "This is gibberish," Taman said weakly. "It's creative," Minho corrected. "Our species never figured out normal faster-than-light travel. We couldn't make the math work. So we stopped trying to make the math work by the rules and instead made up our own rules." The universe, surprisingly, went along with it. Yuna had recovered enough to be angry. "I don't care about your impossible technology. The Viridian sector is quarantined for a reason. There's a war happening there. You cannot pass," Hajun sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that. Commander, I really don't want any trouble. But we need access to that sector. Our scientists believe there's something there that could help us understand the fundamental nature of reality. Knowledge that could benefit everyone." "No," Yuna said flatly. Hajun looked sad. "Then I'm afraid I'll have to demonstrate why you should reconsider. Minho, initiate Configuration 7. "Configuration 7? Minho said. "Captain, that's going to scare them." "That's the point," Hajun said gently. Through the viewport, the impossible ship began to change. It split. One ship became two. Two became four. Four became seven. Each one was identical. Each one registered on sensors as real, solid, and fully functional. They spread out in a formation that hurt Taman's eyes to look at. The formation existed in 4 dimensions, with 3 of the ships occupying positions that geometry said should be impossible. Sunho tried to target them. His computer showed 14 targets, then 3, then 9. The number kept changing. He couldn't get a lock on any of them. 7 fully functional ships, Hajun said, or 1 ship in 7 quantum states. Honestly, even I'm not sure which. The important thing is they're all armed, and they all surround your fleet. Yuna's hand moved toward her weapon controls. "I will fire," she warned. "Please don't," Hajun said. "You'll just waste ammunition, watch." All 7 ships suddenly merged back into one, but they didn't merge at their original position. The single ship was now exactly where Yuna's luminous shield had been, and the luminous shield was now where the Defiant had been. They had traded positions, instantly. Without crossing the space between, Yuna's crew was shouting. Alarms were screaming. Taman checked his readings and felt his sanity slipping. The ships hadn't moved. Instead, the probability of where they had always been had been retroactively changed. They had swapped positions by altering the past. "We changed what was always true," Hajun said softly. "Your ship was always here. Mine was always there. Reality adjusted to make that true. No one was harmed. Nothing was damaged. We just edited history slightly." The Galactic Council chamber was the most important room in known space. It was here that 500 species gathered to make decisions that affected trillions of lives. The chamber was vast, with seats arranged in concentric circles rising toward a domed ceiling that displayed the stars themselves. Today, every seat was filled. Taman stood at the center podium, feeling very small. Around him, representatives from across the galaxy waited to hear his report. He had spent the last week studying the human ship. What he had learned terrified him. "Honored Council," he began, his voice amplified to reach every corner of the chamber. "I have completed my preliminary analysis of the human vessel designated Defiant. My findings are disturbing." He activated his presentation. Holographic displays appeared above him, showing data and equations. The humans have violated 17 of the fundamental laws. These are not minor infractions or alternative interpretations. These are complete rejections of physical principles we believed were absolute. High Counselor Curie, a portly being from a species known for political cunning rather than scientific knowledge, leaned forward. "But their ship works, yes? It functions?" "It does more than function," Taman said. "It shouldn't exist. Every moment that ship remains active, it creates paradoxes that reality has to resolve. It's as if the universe itself is bending to accommodate human expectations rather than enforcing its own rules." An elder counselor named Nari stood. She was ancient even by her species standards, which meant she was older than some civilizations. Her voice was quiet but carried weight. "I have seen this before," she said. 10 million years ago, a species called the Dreamweavers discovered how to make reality subjective. They ascended beyond normal space. They left behind a wound in existence that still kills anything that approaches it. "If humanity is walking that same path, we must stop them now." Curie waved a dismissive hand. "Or we could work with them. Imagine what we could accomplish with such technology." "Counselor Nari, you see danger where I see opportunity." "That's because you're young and foolish," Nari said bluntly. "Some knowledge destroys those who seek it." The debate raged for hours. Finally, it was decided that Taman would return to the Defiant with a team. They would study the ship more thoroughly. They would learn humanity's secrets. And then the council would decide what to do about these impossible newcomers. Captain Hajun welcomed them aboard 3 days later. "Please come in," he said with that strange human smile. "We have nothing to hide." That was the first lie, Taman thought. Everyone had something to hide. The interior of the Defiant was wrong in ways that made Taman's head hurt. He walked down a corridor that should have been straight, but somehow curved back on itself without turning. He passed rooms that were bigger on the inside than the outside. He saw crew members walking on walls as if they were floors, and when he asked about it, a young officer named Jiwan just shrugged. "Gravity is relative," she said. "If I expect down to be that way, then that's where down is. The ship accommodates." "That's not how physics works," Taman protested weakly. He had been saying that a lot lately. Jiwan smiled. "It's how human physics works. Come on, I'll show you the engine room. That's the really fun part." The engine room was at the center of the ship, except it was also distributed throughout the entire vessel. Taman could see it from multiple angles simultaneously, as if he was in several places at once. His brain struggled to process the geometry. At the heart of it all was the reactor. A woman named Yunji, the chief scientist, stood beside it with obvious pride. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said. Taman looked at the reactor and felt reality twist around him. Inside a containment field that glowed with impossible colors, there was something that both existed and didn't exist at the same time. "What is that?" he whispered. "We call it a paradox core," Yunji explained. "We trap two contradictory states in the same space. A yes and a no, something and nothing. Reality keeps trying to resolve the contradiction, and that generates energy. Infinite energy, actually, because the paradox can never be resolved." She pulled up equations on a nearby screen. Taman looked at them and felt his understanding of mathematics crumble. The equations were both correct and incorrect simultaneously. They worked because humans believed they should work. "You're not generating energy," he said slowly. "You're convincing the universe to give you energy." "Exactly." Yunji beamed. "You're starting to understand. We don't force reality to obey us. We persuade it. We negotiate with the fundamental nature of existence." Over the next few days, Taman witnessed more impossibilities. He watched weapons tests where bullets hit their targets before they were fired. He saw shields that protected the ship by existing in a state of perpetual almost collapse, which somehow made them stronger. He observed crew members who could be in two places at once if they didn't think too hard about which place was real. One evening, Taemin sat in the officers' mess with Hajun, trying to understand. "How?" he asked. "How did your species learn to do this?" Hajun poured them both a drink. It was something called coffee, and it tasted bitter but interesting. "We evolved differently than most species," he said. "Humans developed imagination before logic. We created gods and monsters and magic in our minds before we understood chemistry or physics. Our brains are wired to hold contradictory ideas at the same time. We can believe two opposite things without our minds breaking." Engineer Minho joined them. "Every other species I've met discovers how reality works, then accepts it," he said. Humans discovered how reality works, then immediately started looking for exceptions, loopholes, and creative interpretations. "We're natural lawyers. We argue with the universe." "But you can't just ignore the laws of physics," Taemin protested. "We don't ignore them," Yoonji said, sitting down beside them. "We challenge them. We find the edge cases. We exploit the undefined behaviors. Physics has rules, yes, but it also has ambiguities. When quantum mechanics says a particle can be in two places at once until observed, we asked, why stop at the quantum level? When relativity says time is relative, we asked, relative to what? We found the questions that physics didn't have good answers for, and we filled in our own answers." Hajun leaned back in his chair. "Here's the thing, Taemin. Humans spent most of our history being told what was impossible. We were told we couldn't fly, so we built airplanes. We were told we couldn't go to space, so we built rockets. We were told we couldn't split atoms, so we figured out nuclear fission. Every time someone said that's impossible, we heard that's a challenge. When we finally reached the stars and met the rest of the galaxy, we learned about faster-than-light travel," Minho continued. "We studied the theories. We tried to replicate them. And we failed. The math didn't work for us. Our brains couldn't process the concepts the way other species could. So we gave up on doing it the right way," Yoonji said. "We started doing it our way. We stopped trying to move through space normally, and started convincing space that we were already where we wanted to be. We didn't build engines that followed the laws of physics. We built engines that argued with those laws." Taemin absorbed this. "You weaponized your imagination." "We weaponized our stubbornness," Hajun corrected with a smile. "Humans are very, very stubborn. We don't like being told no." The scientist in Taemin wanted to call it all nonsense, but he had seen the evidence. He had measured it, analyzed it, and confirmed it. Humanity had found a way to make the impossible real through sheer creative determination. "Your species is dangerous," he said quietly. "We know," Hajun said, his smile fading. "That's why we're being careful. That's why we want to join the council. We don't want to be a threat. We want to be partners. We have this gift, this ability to break rules. We want to use it to help, not harm. Can you control it?" Taemin asked. "Can you guarantee you won't accidentally destroy reality?" Hajun and his officers exchanged glances. "Honestly?" the captain said. "No, we can't guarantee that. Every time we use our technology, we're taking a risk. We're pulling on threads in the fabric of existence. We don't know if there's a limit to how much we can pull before something breaks permanently." "Then why do it?" Taemin demanded. "Because out here in the galaxy there are threats that normal physics can't stop," Hajun said seriously. "Your blockade of the Viridian sector isn't just for territory. You're fighting something there, aren't you? Something that's winning." Taemin felt cold. That information was classified. "How do you know that?" "We don't know specifics," Minho said. "But we can guess. You don't quarantine an entire sector unless something really bad is happening there. And if your normal technology could handle it, you wouldn't need a blockade. You'd just win." Hajun met Taemin's eyes. "We're not asking for access to the Viridian sector for research. Well, not just for research. We're offering to help. Whatever is in there that your fleets can't beat, maybe we can. Because we don't fight fair. We don't fight with normal rules. You fight with impossible weapons," Taemin said. "Exactly," Hajun said. "So let us help. Let us prove that humanity can be trusted. Let us show you what we can do when we put our impossibility to good use." Taemin knew he should refuse. He should recommend that the council reject humanity's offer. The risk was too great. The danger too real. Commander Yuna stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the tactical display with growing dread. The red markers representing enemy ships outnumbered her blue ones by 30 to 1, and more were coming. The Vrakesh had arrived in force. Status report, she ordered, keeping her voice calm. Her crew needed to see confidence even if she didn't feel it. Enemy fleet count is now at 10,000 ships and rising, Sunho reported. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. They're forming attack patterns. Multiple vectors. They're going to hit us from all sides at once. Yuna had fought the Vrakesh before. Everyone in the Council military had. They were the nightmare that kept admirals awake at night. The Vrakesh had consumed 17 galaxies, turning entire civilizations into fuel for their endless expansion. They were machines, silicon-based entities with computer minds that processed reality as pure logic and mathematics. They were perfect warriors. They adapted to every tactic instantly. They learned from every battle. They never made the same mistake twice, and they never, ever stopped. The Council had managed to hold them at the Viridian sector for 3 years, but it was costing thousands of ships and millions of lives. They weren't winning. They were just delaying the inevitable. Send a priority signal to Council Command, Yuna said. Tell them this is the big push. The Vrakesh are committing everything to breaking through our lines. Already sent, her communications officer replied. Command acknowledges. Reinforcements are 6 hours away, 6 hours. They'd be dead in 1. The comm system activated. Commander Yuna, this is Captain Hajun. We're reading your tactical situation. Permission to assist? Yuna felt a surge of relief followed immediately by doubt. The human ship was still in the sector, observing. The Council had granted them limited access after Taemin's report, but only for research purposes. They weren't supposed to engage in combat, but right now Yuna would take any help she could get. Permission granted, she said. But Captain, you're 1 ship against 10,000. What can you possibly do? We can be unpredictable, Hajun said. She could hear the smile in his voice. And the Vrakesh really hate unpredictability. Watch and learn, Commander. The HKNS Defiant moved forward, accelerating toward the center of the Vrakesh fleet. It was suicide. 1 ship couldn't survive that kind of concentrated firepower, except the Defiant wasn't just 1 ship. It split. 1 became 7, 7 became 20, 20 became 50. Each ship looked identical. Each one registered on sensors as completely real. They spread out in a formation that made Yuna's tactical computer crash trying to plot it. The Vrakesh opened fire. Thousands of energy beams lanced through space, all targeting the human vessels, and every single shot missed. The Defiant copies weren't dodging. They were existing in states of perpetual almost being hit. Shots that should have connected passed through spaces where the ships both were and weren't. The Vrakesh targeting systems, designed to calculate trajectories with perfect accuracy, couldn't understand what they were seeing. Then the humans fired back. Weapons emerged from the Defiant copies that didn't make sense. Missiles that took paths through dimensions that shouldn't exist. Energy beams that curved through impossible angles. Projectiles that somehow hit their targets before they were fired, the impact preceding the launch by several seconds. Yuna watched in stunned silence as Vrakesh ships began exploding, not because they were destroyed by superior firepower, but because their own systems were failing. Their computer minds were trying to process the impossible attacks and running into logical contradictions they couldn't resolve. What are they doing? Sunho whispered. Taemin, who had remained aboard Yuna's flagship as an observer, pulled up analysis data. They're attacking with weapons that violate causality, he said, his voice filled with awe and horror. The Vrakesh calculate threat probability and defensive responses based on logical analysis. But human weapons operate on dream logic. The Vrakesh computers can't process it. They're crashing. A Vrakesh destroyer simply stopped moving, its systems frozen. A cruiser fired its weapons at its own fleet, its targeting computer convinced that its allies were enemies. A dreadnought slowly collapsed in on itself as its structural integrity fields inverted, pushed into a paradox state where they were simultaneously supporting and crushing the ship. Incredible, Yuna breathed. But the Vrakesh were adapting. They always adapted. Reserve fleets moved in with updated logic matrices. They began quarantining impossible data, treating human attacks as errors to be ignored rather than threats to be calculated. They started landing hits on the Defiant copies. 1 human ship vanished as a Vrakesh beam punched through it. Then another. Then 3 more. The numbers dropped from 50 to 30 to 20. Hajun's voice came over the comm, strained now. Minho, status on the shields? Trying to convince them the damage hasn't happened yet, the engineer's voice replied. But reality isn't cooperating. We're taking real hits, Captain. Yunji, can we deploy the probability mines? Already deployed, the scientist said. But the Vrakish are routing around them. They're treating zones of high improbability as navigational hazards rather than weapons. Yuna made a decision. All ships move to support the Defiant. Attack pattern Delta. We draw their fire while the humans regroup. Her fleet surged forward, conventional weapons blazing. It was normal warfare physics that made sense. The Vrakesh knew how to handle it. They redirected their attack and council ships began dying, but it bought the humans time. Captain Hajun, Yuna called out. We can't hold them long. If you have anything more powerful, now is the time. There was a long pause. Then Hajun's voice came back, quieter. Commander, we have one option left. It's called an ontology bomb. It's our most dangerous weapon. Using it will damage the fabric of space-time in this region. Maybe permanently. How bad? Yuna asked. Bad enough that the Council might ban us from ever using our technology again? Hajun said. Bad enough that will probably cause problems that scientists will be dealing with for centuries. Yuna looked at her tactical display. Red markers everywhere. Her ship's dying. The Vrakesh would break through in minutes. If they did, they'd spread into council space. Billions would die. Do it, she ordered. Are you sure? Hajun asked. Commander, you need to understand what this means. We're going to ask reality itself a question it can't answer. The damage won't just be physical. It'll be conceptual. I'm sure, Yuna said. Fire your weapon, Captain. The remaining Defiant copies merged back into one. The single ship moved to the center of the Vrakesh fleet. Something appeared in front of it, a sphere of writhing, impossible colors that hurt to look at. Ontology bomb armed, Yunji's voice said. Captain, last chance to abort. Fire, Hajun ordered quietly. The bomb detonated, but it wasn't an explosion. It was a question. A fundamental question inserted directly into the fabric of reality itself. What if none of this is real? The question propagated outward at the speed of thought. It touched every Vrakesh ship in range, and the Vrakesh, beings of pure logic and mathematics, tried to process it. They tried to calculate the probability of their own existence. They attempted to prove they were real using logic and mathematics. They ran recursive loops trying to verify their reality against the possibility of non-reality. They couldn't solve it. The question had no answer. It was a paradox, and paradoxes were things that the Vrakesh could not accept. Yuna watched in stunned horror as 1,700 Vrakesh warships simply ceased to exist. They didn't explode. They didn't fade away. They retroactively became things that had never been. Reality rewrote itself around them, filling in the gaps where they had been with smooth continuity, as if they had never existed at all. The remaining Vrakesh fleet hesitated. For the first time in recorded history, the Vrakesh showed uncertainty. Their logical minds couldn't process what had just happened. Their sensors told them that 1,700 ships had existed, but reality now said they never had. The contradiction was too great. The Vrakesh fleet retreated. They withdrew from the Viridian sector, falling back to regroup and analyze. They left behind empty space and confused council forces. Yuna's bridge was silent. Every crew member stared at their displays, trying to understand what they'd witnessed. Taemin's hands were shaking as he pulled up environmental readings. Commander, he said weakly, the local space-time is damaged. Gravity is fluctuating. Time is flowing at different rates in different areas. Causality is negotiable. Can it be repaired? Yuna asked. I don't know, Taemin admitted. This kind of damage, we've never seen anything like it. It might heal naturally, or it might get worse. We've basically wounded the universe itself. The Defiant appeared beside Yuna's flagship, moving through normal space this time. Hajun's voice came over the comm. Commander, we're reading the damage. We're sorry, but we saved the sector. We stopped the Vrakesh at what cost? Yuna asked quietly. A high one, Hajun admitted. Reality in this region is scarred. It'll be dangerous to navigate here for a long time, maybe forever. But the alternative was letting the Vrakesh break through. Was it worth it? Yuna looked at the tactical display. The Vrakesh were gone. Her remaining ships were safe. The Council had won this battle. But she understood now what humanity truly was. They were beings who could win any fight, solve any problem, defeat any enemy. 3 days after the battle, Taemin floated in the observation pod and watched something that shouldn't be possible. A star was flickering. Not dimming or brightening naturally, but flickering like a broken light. One moment it existed, the next it didn't, then it existed again. Reality itself was uncertain about whether the star was real. "This is spreading," he said into his recorder. "The damage from the ontology bomb is getting worse, not better. Reality degradation is affecting a sphere approximately 3 light-years in radius and growing." His assistant pulled up more data. "We're detecting temporal anomalies too. In some areas, time is moving backwards. In others, it's moving at triple speed. And there are zones where causality has completely broken down. Effects are preceding causes." Taman felt sick. This was exactly what Counselor Nari had warned about. Humanity had broken something fundamental, and now the wound was festering. A ship appeared beside his observation pod. The Defiant, moving through normal space this time. A message came through from Yunji. "Taman, we need to talk. Can you come aboard?" He didn't want to. Part of him wanted to never see that impossible ship again. But he was a scientist and he needed answers. "I'm coming." The transport was gentler this time. Yunji had modified it to be less paradoxical, she explained. "We realized that the quantum superposition transport was adding to the local reality damage, so we've switched to a more conventional method. It's slower but safer." Taman materialized in a conference room where Captain Hajun and his senior staff waited. They all looked tired. Guilty even. "We know about the spreading damage," Hajun said without preamble. "We've been monitoring it, and we need to tell you the truth about what humanity has been doing." "More truth?" Taman said bitterly. "What haven't you told us?" Yunji pulled up a holographic display. It showed Earth's solar system, then the surrounding space. Everywhere there were small markers indicating reality damage. "Every time we use our technology, we hurt the universe," she said quietly. "Every jump through probability space, every paradox we create, every time we convince reality to change its mind. All of it causes damage. We've known this since we built the first prototype ship," Minho added. "We tested it thoroughly. We measured the effects. We knew what we were doing." "And you did it anyway?" Taman demanded. "Because we had to," Hajun said. "Let me show you something." The display changed. It showed Earth, beautiful and blue, orbiting its yellow star. Then the view pulled back, showing more ships, hundreds of them, all with the same impossible signatures as the Defiant. "This is humanity's fleet," Hajun said. 237 ships, all using reality-breaking technology. All causing damage with every light year they travel. We've been operating them for 20 years. "Why?" Taman asked. "Why would you do this if you knew the cost?" "Because we had no choice," a new voice said. Taman turned. A woman had entered the room, older than the others, with gray hair and tired eyes. She wore a uniform with symbols indicating the highest rank. "Admiral Borum," Hajun said, standing. "Thank you for coming." Borum sat down heavily. "Taman, I'm the director of Earth's Defense and Research Program. I authorized the development of our impossible technology. So if you're looking for someone to blame, blame me." She pulled up another display. This one showed a region of space beyond the galactic rim. 50 years ago, we detected something approaching our galaxy. Something vast. We couldn't identify it with conventional sensors. So we sent probes. They never came back. The display showed fragments of data, corrupted and incomplete. We kept trying. We sent more advanced probes, better protected. A few sent back partial data before they were destroyed. What we learned terrified us. Images appeared. Twisted shapes, geometries that hurt to look at. Structures that existed in too many dimensions. There's something out there in the dark between galaxies. Something old. Something that consumes. We don't know what it is. We call it the silence because everything it touches stops existing. Taman stared at the images. "Why didn't you tell the council?" "Because we can't prove it," Borum said. "Our data is fragmentary. Every species we've shared it with thinks we're being paranoid. They say we're new to space and seeing threats that aren't there, but we know what we detected. And we know it's coming." She leaned forward. "Humanity is young. We're weak. Our conventional technology is centuries behind yours. If the silence comes, if that thing reaches inhabited space, we'd be among the first to die. And we'd be helpless, no. So you built weapons that break reality itself," Taman said. "We built weapons that can fight things that conventional physics can't touch," Hajun corrected. "The Vrakesh are logical. They can be defeated with illogic. But the silence is different. It's something that exists outside normal reality. Only weapons that ignore normal reality have a chance against it." Yunji brought up new data. We've been running calculations for 30 years. We've modeled the effects of our technology as accurately as we can. Based on our current usage rate, we're shortening the universe's lifespan. By how much? Taman asked, dreading the answer. Roughly 3 billion years, she said quietly. For every year we operate our fleet at current levels, the universe will die 3 billion years sooner than it would naturally. Taman felt his 3 hearts stop. That's genocide. Universal genocide. You're killing everything that will ever exist. We know, Borum said. Her voice was hollow. We're burning the future to survive the present. It's the most horrible thing our species has ever done, and we're doing it because we believe the alternative is worse. How could anything be worse? Tamin demanded. Hajun pulled up another display. Because we have a plan. It's called Project Anchoring. If we can't stop using our reality-breaking technology, then we need to repair the damage we're causing. The display showed a massive structure, larger than any station Taman had ever seen. This is our proposal. A network of reality stabilizers deployed across thousands of star systems. They'll reinforce the fabric of space-time, healing the damage we've caused. The technology is theoretical but possible, Yunji said. We've already built small-scale prototypes, they work. But building enough stabilizers to counteract our fleet's damage will take enormous resources, more than humanity has alone. You need the Council's help, Taman realized. Yes, Borum said. We need access to resources, industrial capacity, and expertise that we don't have. We need the Council's best scientists working with ours. And most importantly, we need time. Minho pulled up a timeline. Based on our projections, we need about 200 years to complete Project Anchoring. 200 years of operating our fleet, while simultaneously building the infrastructure to undo the damage. If we can do that, we can restore the universe's natural lifespan and even prevent future damage. And if you can't? Taman asked. Then we fail, Hajun said simply. The universe dies early. Everything ends. And it will be humanity's fault. Taman sat in silence, trying to process what he'd learned. Humanity wasn't just dangerous. They were existential. Every moment they existed with their current technology was a moment stolen from the future. But they were also the only species who could fight threats that normal physics couldn't touch. The Vrakesh had proven that. And if this silence was real, if there really was something out there that conventional weapons couldn't stop, then maybe humanity's impossible technology was necessary. I need to bring this to the Council, he said finally. We understand, Borum said. We're not asking for blind trust. We're asking for a chance to prove ourselves. Let us operate our fleet for 200 years under Council supervision. Every use of reality-breaking technology must be approved. Every deployment monitored, and in exchange, we'll defend Council space from threats that your conventional forces can't handle. While building Project Anchoring, Taman said. While building Project Anchoring, Borum confirmed. With your help, we can save the future we're currently destroying. Taman looked at each of them. Hajun, the ship captain who commanded the impossible. Yunji and Minho, scientists who had weaponized paradoxes. Borum, the admiral who had authorized it all. They were honest about the cost. They weren't hiding the danger. They were offering a deal with full transparency. Councillor Nari will oppose this, he said. She'll say you're too dangerous. That the risk is too great. She'll be right, Hajun admitted. We are too dangerous. The risk is too great, but sometimes you need dangerous allies. Sometimes you have to take great risks. The Vrakesh will return. Yuna's voice came over the comm. She had been listening. They're regrouping, analyzing what happened. They'll adapt. And when they come back, they'll be ready for us. But they won't be ready for humanity's impossibility. Taman made his decision. I'll present your proposal to the Council. I'll recommend approval, but with strict conditions. Humanity operates under Council oversight. Every major deployment requires authorization. You share all your research on Project Anchoring, and if at any point it becomes clear that the damage is irreversible, you decommission your entire fleet immediately. Agreed, Borum said. We'll accept any reasonable restrictions. We just need the chance to prove we can fix what we've broken. Taman stood. Then I'll do everything I can to get you that chance. But know this, all of you, Ild the Univ. The Galactic Council voted on a clear morning, under stars that had witnessed countless civilizations rise and fall. Taman stood at the center podium again, this time with humanity's fate in the balance. He had presented everything. The threat of the Vrakesh, the mystery of the silence, the damage humanity was causing, the promise of project anchoring. For 6 hours he answered questions, addressed concerns, and defended a species that terrified him. High Counselor Curie spoke in favor. We need allies who can fight impossible threats. The Vrakesh proved that conventional warfare isn't enough. Elder Counselor Nari spoke against. We're making a deal with forces we don't understand. This path leads to ruin. Commander Yuna surprised everyone by speaking in support. I've fought beside them. They're dangerous, yes, but they're controlled danger. They know what they are. That makes them safer than most. The vote came down to a single deciding voice. A neutral counselor from a species known for careful judgment. After a long silence, she voted yes, the measure passed. Humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. They could operate their reality-breaking fleet for 200 years under strict oversight. Every major deployment would require council approval. They would share all research on project anchoring, and they would prove they could repair what they'd broken. Hajun accepted the terms with a simple statement. We won't let you down. 5 years passed. Taman, now officially appointed as humanity's liaison, stood on the bridge of the Defiant as they responded to their 7th crisis. The HKNS fleet had grown to 300 ships. They had sister vessels now. The Paradox commanded by Captain Jamin, the Probably Not under Captain Heejin, the Perspective captained by Seo-hyun. Together, they had stopped 3 more Vrakesh incursions. They had dismantled a dark matter pirate fleet that conventional sensors couldn't even detect. They had convinced a rogue black hole to relocate to an uninhabited region of space by persuading it that it had always wanted to be there, and now they faced something new. What are we looking at? Taemin asked. Yunji studied the data with a frown. We're calling it the stillness. It's a region of space where entropy is reversing. Stars are unburning, planets are unforming. It's like watching time run backwards. Can we fight it? Hajun asked. I don't know, she admitted. It exists in a state that's almost the opposite of our technology. We break rules and create chaos. This thing enforces absolute order. It's anti-change made manifest. Minho ran calculations. If we try our normal weapons, they might not work. Paradoxes require change to exist. In a zone of perfect stillness, paradoxes might just collapse. So we adapt, Hajun said. That's what humans do best. Engineer Sora proposed a solution. The stillness reduces entropy, so we hit it with maximum entropy. Chaos weapons. Complete disorder. She designed projectiles that contained every possible quantum state simultaneously. When fired, they introduced so much random variation into the zone of stillness that it had to respond. The stillness, forced to process change for the first time, retreated to deeper layers of reality where humans couldn't follow. Another threat defeated. Another victory added to humanity's record. Commander Yuna, now a full admiral, sent a message. Well done, Captain. The Council is impressed, but I have a question. When does it get easier? Haijun laughed. Never, Admiral. The universe keeps throwing new challenges at us. We just keep finding creative solutions. 50 years passed. Taemin was old now by his species' standards. He had devoted half his life to studying humanity and their impossible technology. He had seen things that shouldn't exist, fought battles that defied logic, and watched as humans slowly proved they could be trusted. Project Anchoring was ahead of schedule. The first generation of reality stabilizers had been deployed across 800 star systems. They were working. The damage was beginning to heal. The universe's lifespan was being restored year by year, but Taemin also watched humanity change. The newer generation of humans, those who had grown up with the responsibility of their technology, were more cautious than their parents. They understood the cost better. They used their impossible weapons only when absolutely necessary. Young scientists like Jisoo, Yoonji's granddaughter, were developing less destructive technologies. They were finding ways to bend reality without breaking it, ways to argue with physics without causing permanent damage. We're learning restraint, Jisoo explained during one of Taemin's visits. The first generation had to be bold. They had to prove that impossible things could be done. We have to prove that impossible things can be done responsibly. 173 years passed. Taemin had been dead for 90 years. His successor, a brilliant young scientist named Juan, continued his work. The relationship between humanity and the Council had evolved from suspicion to respect. to genuine partnership. The Vrikesh had been pushed back beyond the galactic rim. The silence that humanity had warned about never materialized, though listening posts remained active, watching the dark between galaxies. Dozens of other threats had been neutralized by humanity's impossible fleet and project. Anchoring was complete. The final reality stabilizer was activated in a ceremony attended by representatives from every council species. The anchoring array now spanned 7,000 star systems, powered by captured quasars and neutron stars. It was the largest engineering project in galactic history. Admiral Somin, great-granddaughter of Captain Hajun, stood at the control center. She was older than her ancestor had been, more weathered, but she had his same determined eyes. Initialize the final sequence, she ordered. The array activated. Across 7,000 systems, reality stabilizers began operating in perfect synchronization. They reinforced spacetime, healed paradoxes, and restored causality. The damage that 2 centuries of impossible technology had caused began to fade. Juan watched the readings with tears in his eyes. It's working. The universe's natural lifespan is being restored. In another 10 years, it will be as if humanity's fleet never existed. But we did exist, Soman said quietly, and we kept our promise. Elder Counselor Mirai, Nari's successor, had lived long enough to see this day. She was ancient now, older even than Nari had been. She approached Somin with slow, careful steps. Your species kept its word, Mirai said. 200 years. You bought yourself time with impossible weapons, and you used that time to fix what you'd broken. I doubted you would succeed. So did we, Somin admitted. Every day we doubted. But we kept working anyway. That's what humans do. We doubt ourselves, but we try anyway. The time had come. Admiral Soman gave the order that her great-grandfather had known would eventually be necessary. Begin decommissioning the fleet. All ships return to dock. It's time to put away our impossible weapons. The HKNS Defiant, now ancient by human standards but still functioning through paradox and stubbornness, received the order. Its crew, descendants of those who had served with Hajun, prepared for the final protocol. The ship that had started it all, that had proven humanity could break reality and survive, would be the first to go. Not destroyed, not archived. Instead, it would be gently convinced that it had never existed. A final paradox. The ship would retroactively become something that might have been, rather than something that was. It was the safest way to dispose of something that defied existence itself. As the Defiant faded from reality, taking its paradoxes with it, Juan recorded a message. It would be sent to every species in the galaxy, and to those beyond who would one day discover it. This is a message about humanity, he said. For 200 years we operated technology that broke the fundamental laws of reality. We did it because we had to, because threats exist that conventional physics cannot touch. We caused damage. We shortened the universe's lifespan by billions of years. But we also fixed what we broke. We kept our promise, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Humanity learned an important lesson. Just because you can do something impossible doesn't mean you should. Our weapons were necessary for a time. They saved countless lives. But they were never meant to be permanent. They were tools for a specific job. And now that job is done, we're returning to normal physics. We're giving up our impossible advantage. Because we've realized something important. True strength isn't in breaking rules. It's in knowing when to follow them. It's in having the power to do impossible things and choosing not to. But if you ever need us, he continued, if reality itself is threatened again, if something emerges that conventional weapons cannot stop, humanity will remember how to be impossible. We'll remember how to argue with the universe, and we'll do it again, knowing the cost, accepting the responsibility. Because that's what humanity does. We solve impossible problems. We take on challenges that terrify us. We break rules when rules need breaking, and we fix what we break. We're dangerous. We know that. But we're controlled danger. We're danger that thinks before it acts. We're danger that cleans up after itself. The message ended with coordinates to Earth's solar system and a final statement. We are human. We are creative, stubborn, and occasionally impossible. We've proven we can be trusted with reality-breaking power. But more importantly, we've proven we know when to put that power away. Remember us not for what we could do, but for what we chose not to do once the job was done.